I received a call from, excuse me, a text from Representative Johnson. Oh, there he is. Hi, Jesse. Representative Johnson, who wanted to say a few words when we got started. I know that I asked Bill to relay that message.
Well, thank you, Mayor Farrell. Just wanted to, first thank everyone for being at the meeting, but secondly, thank you for your, work and trying to do the best meeting you could last week. I know it was a very difficult meeting for everyone, but I'm glad we got to hear from community that has concerns around the new law enforcement policies, use of force policies, but also what's happening with homelessness and as it relates to public safety. I actually just got off the phone with Chief Wang and we had a good conversation, but I wanted to address a couple of things. First of all, these policies that were created this year, the premise of it is we want to make sure that use of force against the public is limited, and we create an expectation for de-escalation and less lethal enforcement of the law. And so that's the intent behind this legislation. I think we've seen the last couple of years law enforcement agencies in Washington, not necessarily Federal Way, but there's a lot of there's an increase in police violence, just like there's an increase in crime. And so we want to make sure that there is less lethal enforcement of the law. There are some questions that will be addressed by a statement by myself and some other colleagues in the legislature this Friday in regards to the bills. But I just wanted to correct a couple things. One thing that was said is, will House Bill 1310, will the use of force law prevent police from responding to mental health crises or domestic violence calls? And that's false. The new law will limit what officers are authorized to do in terms of physical force once they get to the situation, but it will not prevent them from responding. We want to prevent crimes that happen, but we also want to prevent violence against people when there's not a crime at all, like in the case of Manny Ellis or John T. Williams or Jesse Saray. And so the law emphasizes de-escalation rather than confrontation and asks our officers to ask more questions prior to using force. Secondly, the de-escalation tactics that we talk about in the bill are being trained on by the Criminal Justice Training Commission. They reached out and shared their new use of force training, and it looks great. It's designed around these best practices around de-escalation. So I just wanted to provide some input on that. Secondly, the bill does not prohibit officers from detaining someone that's an imminent risk or threat. And so actually, in just talking to the chief, if there is a violent crime, they will make sure to respond to that crime. They will make sure to detain that individual. And so that's not a thing. And so we want to make sure that that's noted as well. And then finally, the bill emphasizes de-escalation, and it shows that we have a lot of gaps in our crisis response system. I think many of you here know that mental health is huge, and we need to make sure we have more mental health responders, more crisis triage facilities, more support specialists that go to these scenes with officers, and that is critical in how we reduce violence. And so I think that's something that will continue to happen as well. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we have the proper response. And so that's just what I wanted to say really quickly. I don't want to take up too much more time, but I think there was a lot said at that meeting, a lot of concerns. Some are valid, some are not. But I think I needed to at least address that before my statement went out. I'm also going to be doing a few interviews about it. So thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
Now, Jesse, we can listen to you all day. So I was ready. Very happy to have you here.
I don't like listening to myself all day, so I'm actually getting tired of my own voice. So it's I'm happy to shut up.
Well, on that note, everybody, hello and welcome to our community forum, our Federal Way Black Collective Mayor's meeting with our community. It is 6:30, and I'm actually on time today. I'm very happy. I'm very happy to have the mayor here. Mr. Farrell, are you there?
I am. Yep.
Okay. Let's see. So before we get started, I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the Executive Director of Federal Way Black Collective, Lynn Idahosa.
Thank you so much, Deonta. I apologize for my tardiness, but I'm grateful to be in space with community tonight. And I'm really excited about a lot of the things that we have to get to talk about tonight, and the continued, I won't say back and forth, but just conversation that's being had with our city. And I will say that we are extremely fortunate. We've been doing this for a year. I've not seen another city pick up that same torch and have these same conversations. So although we may say that, yes, there's a lot going on we need to fix, this is one way that our city acknowledges that and routinely continues to show up. And I'm grateful for that. So welcome all of you tonight, and thank you for joining us. And I just appreciate all of you being here.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And I see that we do have the Black Collective up next to speak on the Juneteenth event recap.
Yes, that'll be me too.
Oh.
I'm actually so very, very excited about that. Routinely, we reach thousands of subscribers every month. During the month of June 2021, we reached 11,000 people with no paid promotion, which is very different if you're familiar with marketing. So that type of grassroots reach, as far as access to resources and connecting people to the information they need to know to move forward, was extremely critical. I'm extremely also excited about how that's forged a path forward with additional partnerships, such as with Vault 365, which is a local radio station that's always at the farmers market. So please check them out. And with other service providers. And thank you so much, Joe. I will let this amazing video show everything else. If you did not get a Juneteenth shirt, let us know. We'll catch you into the other one. On August 24th, this weekend, we will be at the Town Square Park, so please join us. But we also have an ASQ training, which is the Ages and Stages questionnaire. So that is for daycares. They can provide wraparound services to their families. Please check in with us. We were extremely grateful to have the King County Executive's Office join us during our Juneteenth City Hall takeover for that week, where we covered various topics such as childcare and employment and mental health. And we had the participation of Rep. Jamila Taylor, Rep. Johnson, Senator Wilson, and so many other electeds join us in that Juneteenth programming. And we thank you for your participation before and during, like, publicly with the events. And also moving forward, like I said, starting this Saturday, we have our programming at Town Square Park. And in August, we'll have drop-in youth events every Tuesday. So youth can join in with our partners and our partners at Columbia Bank and Junior Achievers to get information about how to have real life skills, which was super important to me because when Rep. Johnson was a council member, that was a lot of feedback that he got from youth, that they really wanted to have programs that taught them critical life skills. And so it was very important to us to bring that to the forefront with our first summer youth programming. So thank you so much for the time. Thank you for your time this evening, where you will share your thoughts. And I appreciate you showing up as your best selves with all the authenticity that's required. And any follow-up you need from me to help prepare anything you want to bring to a meeting in October, or any programming you want to pursue in the future, we do offer fiscal sponsorship to ensure that you can secure funding. And as well as we have a small business network support meeting on the 29th at 10 a.m. Please join us via Zoom. Thank you guys so much. You're on mute.
Is there a chance that you can put that that event in the chat box for some of our community members? Thanks. And we did have a recap with Farmers Market. Okay, sorry. All right, so I see here. Okay, so now it's me and Jim time. Mayor Jim, how are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm blessed. I can't complain. Let's see here. Hold on, sorry. My computer's acting so weird. So we can just start with your update if you can.
Oh, you bet. Okay. We had just an amazing event for the Juneteenth flag raising ceremony. First, I wanted to reflect on that program. And I wanted to relate a story about the origin of our Juneteenth flags and buttons. I think that's something that is really noteworthy. I don't know if many people realize this, but they came from the National Juneteenth Observation Foundation in Louisiana. This is a family foundation that has been advocating with many states for both Juneteenth Day, like Flag Day, and to eventually establish it as a national holiday. It was started by the Reverend Ronald Myers Sr., who was also a medical doctor, and since 1986, he tirelessly coordinated with the other efforts that successfully recognized Juneteenth in 45 states, and now ultimately it's a national holiday. He passed, unfortunately, before seeing the fruits of his efforts, but they live on through he and his family. His family was very helpful in supporting our Federal Way ceremonies, which was, very, very important. I wanted to show that just the human side of that and the connection to the national movement to ours. We flew two Juneteenth flags, one at City Hall flagpole and another at the Federal Way Farmers Market event the next day on the actual Juneteenth. At the flag raising ceremony, it was great to have the Buffalo Soldiers represented by First Sergeant Stephen Nave of Tacoma's Buffalo Soldiers Museum. And it was the Buffalo Soldiers that landed in Texas on June 19th and helped pass the good news of the Emancipation Proclamation. Or the victory of the war. Thank you to many who participated in the Juneteenth flag raising ceremony and in the reading of the proclamation. It was great to see all those folks. And actually, just so you know, in City Hall, actually, we have that picture blown up at poster size for that celebration. Actually, it's in our conference room right now for that great day. And I'd like to say thank you to our future leaders, including Anissa Rogers and Trenton Walker, participating by performing and raising the flag. Was all, just great to see all the kids involved in that. Also want to personally thank Trinice Rogers, Chair of the Diversity Commission, for her help in planning the event, and many, many, many others. Planning for Juneteenth 2022 will commence in March and probably well before that. I want to give you a police body camera update. Body cameras have been approved by the council, and we have secured funding to purchase the equipment and get our officers equipped soon. And actually, it was even the last time I had one of these, I think it was on our agenda to talk about this, but we updated it to make sure that there's a question in regard to the use of ARPA funds, the federal relief funds with COVID. And so we actually are utilizing, I believe, north of $700,000 from red light traffic enforcement funds that are in, what do they call those? Security, not rainy day funds to make sure that we can move forward with this, but then we'll get approval down the road for ARPA funds for this use. So that again was on the agenda, and the council approved it unanimously. We've got a partnership with King County Elections, a voting center at the PAC. We're proud to again host the King County Elections at that location. Services include registration for new voters, updating of current voting records, issuing of new or replacement voter registration cards, and to provide assistance to voters who need help completing their ballots. Trained staff and specialized equipment are available to help voters with disabilities cast a private independent ballot. And dates of hours of the voting center at the PAC are Saturday, July 31st, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday, August 2nd, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., and on Election Day, August 3rd, 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. till closing, essentially. Update on our broadband initiatives. Positive developments here. With the use of ARPA funds, we'll be working to enhance our current Wi-Fi system, Federal Way Wireless. In addition to those funds, we are monitoring the Biden administration's infrastructure bill. Our federal lobbyists are confident a package will be passed, probably somewhere around the $1 trillion range, and broadband is a high priority and a sizable portion of that package. Shop local efforts. We continue to update our shop local website with we've got thousands, at least 4,000 businesses on that. And with the latest business licenses, verify that Black-owned businesses are included in that directory. All business licenses are on the site. We need to help encourage businesses to personalize their listings and post promotions on their Facebook and Instagram, and we can share that. We've been working with the Federal Way Farmers Market to do business-related events. We've had a couple of those so far. In addition to our Juneteenth was a shining example of how we did that, and we look forward to the August 21st market that will have an emphasis on back to school. Our diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator, Erica Esqueda, I don't know if many people have heard, but she actually, after 90 days here, took a position, you know, like as John Lennon famously wrote in one of my favorite songs of all time, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. And that's a beautiful boy, by the way. And Erica got just a tremendous opportunity to work in the mayor's office, working on homelessness issues in the city of Seattle. And she was one of those, you know, good news, bad news. The great news for her was that she had this once in a life opportunity to really have an impact on the largest city in the region on an issue that she cares passionately about. The downside is she had just started here and was well on her way. So on working on that. So our next steps, we got notice a few weeks ago. I think it's about 2 weeks now. We're posting the position this week with major focus on a department by department review of policies and equity practices. And we're happy for Erica and her new opportunity again. And we thank her for her service and commitment to these important issues. So, and let's see here. I think that's pretty much my update.
Awesome. So what we'll do now is we'll open it up for us to community members. Text mayor question. Please feel free, community.
I'll go ahead and chime in first. Hello, Mayor Phil, Lakeisha Phillips here.
Hi, Lakeisha.
I know I volunteered with the hiring the last time for that position. Are you going to kind of go through a similar process?
Yes, of course. And thank you for your help with that. Yes, we'll go through that.
Okay, count me in.
All right, you got it. Thank you. Yeah, well, I was really, you know, she was really working hard, and we were having, you know, great conversations, and she was working and excited, and then it was just one of those things that I think that was something that she was looking at before, and then I think they had at the city of Seattle, they'd put it on the back burner, and then they came back to her, and you know, we've all been in that. You know, I've been, you know, just in my career, you know, many years ago in that position where you're sort of in those agonizing career decisions. But we're very thankful for the time she put in. Oh, I see a question here. What are we doing to make the diversity coordinator position more attractive? It was acknowledged by council the rate of pay was low for the role. Well, we've got a budget, a 2-year budget. It's at $75,000 for a half-time position. I'm confident that $75,000 for a half-time position is a competitive salary that would, for a full-time, that would equate to 150, obviously. We've got a number of competing challenges at the city, and so the amount we have to work with from the council was $75,000 for a part-time position. So I think actually what we're going to be really looking at is refining the scope of work. I think that I've talked with our new HR manager and Vanessa, and making sure that our focus is where it needs to be. And I think that what we want to do is really focus on the inward policies of the city and what we can do in regard to hiring, promotions, those kinds of things. I think the challenge for a part-time position was it was a very expansive job description, and I think it's important for us to make sure that we've got our house in order, and that we're doing things that are that we're promoting the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I think it's something, Lynn, I see that comes from Lynn. I think it is something that we need to make sure that that the position is attractive to somebody that wants to serve in that role, and that we make sure that the position is supported, and that it's a position that's seen that has a great deal of impact. So we'll make sure. I think Lynn's question is well taken. Thank you. Okay. Instead of underpaying and making it wage insecure, why do we expand it? Why don't we expand it so we can have DEI and urban planning to address structural inequity? Well, we'll take a look at it. Right now. What we've got is a budgeted position. I mean, we've got forward and expansion as well as addressing historical. Oh, thank you for your question, Sai. I think, Sai, right now we're experiencing a huge, we're expecting a huge influx and surge of demand for garbage cleanup, code compliance. When we launched Eyes on Federal Way, the amount of impact to the community or to our work staff has gone up dramatically. We're cleaning up homeless encampments, and there's a lot of things going on. We are really down in parks staff. So we also did not fund the COLA, the cost of living adjustment for the non-represented employees. There are a lot of competing demands. And so I know the council, shaved off $75,000 for this position during the biennium, and we've got a lot of competing demand. This is obviously a very high priority, but right now this is the budget that we've got to work with, and we'll make it work. How will the city PD use its allocation of the new mental health or the N mental health field response grant? How much was the city allocated? That's from Cynthia Ricks-McCatan, who works in this field. Cynthia, what is the N for Nancy? What does that stand for? There's an N before mental health.
It's IN. I'm sorry.
Oh,
So
okay.
It's
Got it.
the mental health field response grants allocated to law enforcement agencies.
Got it. Okay, and we've got the chief on here, so let's get him, chief.
Our South King County agencies who are dispatched by Valleycom. We applied for a state grant through WASPC, Washington Association of Sheriff's Police Chiefs. So we were granted grant funding to do a pilot project with King County Mobile Crisis Team. So we had something in place, and it was a pilot, and then we applied for another grant. The total grant funding, I believe, was like $4.3 million. So we applied for expansion of this program, and we were granted. So we're looking at, I think we have now funding for another year. And we have about 3 staff members who are able, so we already partnered with Mobile Crisis Team, and they were going to respond and assist in South King County. The downside was just strictly their availability. It was only during business hours, and sometimes it was a little spotty. Sometimes they couldn't respond. So what this will do is it will expand the capability of the Mobile Crisis, co-responder program, that they can respond and assist. They are working out of the Des Moines substation right there, 272nd and Pack, at their Safeway retail center there. So that's what that is. So we're glad that we have more resource to when we're responding to mental health, behavioral type of calls. And I think it's kind of becoming part of our vocabulary now. Is there mobile crisis, crisis team member that can respond? And that's almost kind of a routine when we're going to a mental health call now.
Okay. I see a question from Tirza Idahosa that says, is there a reason Federal Way is requiring people to come back into the office rather than allowing them to continue to work from home? And have we lost any staff because of this move? What I would say, Tirza, thank you very much for the question. What I would say is when the governor opened up the state back on June 30th, that meant that the doors for City Hall reopened. And I think I wrote Lynn an email about this, or I think we got back to Lynn on this issue. This is actually, if you really think about our workforce and what we do here at the city with the Parks Department employee, or if you think about the folks that are required to be here every day and the percentage of those employees, that includes nearly every Parks employee, Public Works employee, community center employee, Dumas Bay, police, anybody who answers a front counter. It's a very small percentage of people who actually could work from home. I actually just don't think it's very fair to have the a very small number of people be able to work remotely. So you got a fairness issue, and this is a service delivery organization. I think we deliver those services better when we do them in person. And when people show up here, we work for them. And so we've reported back. I think we've lost a couple people, but they want to work remotely, and we're not going to do that. We're gonna show up to work every day and work for the people of this community. Then I see Lynn has a question. What guidance is the city providing for remote employees and small business owners? With the difficulty retaining employees in small business, remote work is attractive for retaining employees. In the city plan for the next 10 years, one of the larger goals was moving toward a more tech remote work, is essentially the poster child for how that would be present most in our community. In the effort to support small businesses, are there resources for that to ensure that our most vulnerable and 0 to 12 population are safer? Well, I don't know if is Tim Johnson on the call. Do you know if he's okay? Right, he was here. He's always here. He's always here on the weekend. I'd have to ask Tim in regard to. I don't think that we have anything in particular, or that maybe that's something that we can work with the chamber about. I think remote work is certainly something in certain fields that is attractive to folks. But we are moving to a tech hub, and we are attracting a lot of different jobs to the city and new businesses, and we're working every day to bring those in, and it's certainly something to consider, and we'll work with the chamber about that. We're one of their pivotal partners, and Bill, let's bookmark that to communicate with Becca and her team and at the chamber. Have you considered partnering with King County to strategically utilize capacity building funds so that local CBOs versus corporate CBOs facilitate the work? Okay, we'll consider that. Let's see here. Is the Federal Way completely up to OSHA guidelines on the HVAC system, or is that still in process? Yes, we're completely up to. I was just talking to our parks and facilities folks. We are completely in compliant with that. Let's see here. We also have to care about the families of our employees, and some employees do work remotely still. Actually, everybody has been required to report back to work. I think there are exceptions, and we have an exception. We've got a full policy manual where people are allowed to work if they work with their directors, and if there's a health issue, family issue, and it's dependent on the director. Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
So Mayor, one of the biggest issues is the fact that a lot of childcare facilities have closed and most likely will not be able to reopen. Or if some are, it'll be a while before they're able to do so. And so I would hope that one of the policies is consideration for those who have to do distance learning and don't have childcare options and need to work from home if their job classification allows them to be able to do that, like they don't need to be at the permit counter or something like that. Just because that is a major issue, and a lot of folks haven't been able to return to work because they don't have childcare options.
Well, we haven't, with our folks here, we have not heard that's been an issue. And if people do have an issue, they can talk to the director, they can talk to HR. So those are issues that we certainly are sensitive about. I spoke with all the employees at a quarterly meeting via Zoom. I've sent them several detailed emails about it. And if anybody has, concerns or issues like that, they can work with their director and our HR person. So it's not draconian. There are avenues.
Do you happen to have do you think someone can put to get a hold of them in the chat if they wanted to work with them?
What's that?
I'm sorry. I thought you were passing on information. You said the director. I couldn't hear the last thing you said.
Oh, what I said was if an employee has an issue, they can just work with their director and then work also with HR. Oh. And so that's been clearly set out and communicated to all our city employees. But you know, we started working remotely because of the emergency, and the emergency, for all practical purposes, is passed. So we're back to work. The doors are open, and we're working for the people. Our King County, let's see here. Okay, from Cy, question for City Council. King County decided to invest 49% of all housing inventory from now until 2044 in Seattle. However, working class families as well as BIPOC households are being pushed out, and Federal Way's strong school district and neighborly precinct make us a top destination. What efforts is council making to plan for the need for more schools and other avenues to increase our affordable housing inventory? Well, Cy, I'm going to turn this over to our council president here in a second. So get ready, Susan, it's coming your way. But what I would say is the community just approved $500 million in schools, and those schools are now coming online. And obviously we've got a school board director here with us. But really, actually, I took a tour of several of those schools, and don't they look beautiful, Lakeisha? Oh, okay. And I don't know if you heard me, Lakeisha. But what I would say as well is that making sure that we've got we just actually are working on our housing action plan that was on the agenda for last night's agenda, and part of that, Cy, is we had a couple of council members, in fact, actually a unanimous verdict by the council was to send it back for a more public meeting to have a community-wide discussion about the housing action plan, to make sure that we are planning for a variety of options and making sure that we've got affordable housing and additional units, ADUs, and different types of strategies to make sure that we've got good, reliable, available, affordable housing for our community. So that went back to first a big public meeting, because most of the public outreach had been done during COVID. So I think council was concerned that that had not been done in a non-COVID environment where people could come out and really participate. And then it's going to come back to the land use committee, what's referred to as LUTC, Land Use and Transportation Committee, and then it's going to come back to the full city council. But we've got Council President Honda here. I thought I saw her here. Council President Honda, did you want to add anything to that? Because it was directed to council.
I would have said the exact same thing. The housing action plan was to be voted on last night at council, and I felt very strongly that we needed to have more public input, because all of the public input was done during COVID. And I felt that our citizens really need a chance to look at this action plan and look at the different things that are being proposed. It's a long-term plan. It goes from 0 to 40 years out. It has a lot of things in it, and some very significant changes that would change how Federal Way looks. So we're hoping that with a public meeting that the public will have time to review the action plan. It's on the city's webpage now, and you can look at it and then come to the meeting and talk to us, or talk to us anytime if you've reviewed it, and let us know what you're thinking.
Okay, I see Tirza wrote, I'm at 7:05 looking at Tirza's comments. Some of these concerns are also diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. The shutdown made a way for lots of disabled people to get jobs because they were able to work from home, which is something we should be looking into. And then Steve attached. Oh, Steve just attached the housing action plan in the chat for people to take a look at the proposed housing action plan. I see Councilmember Kraft has joined us. We've got Councilmember Baruso here as well. Councilmember Asefa Dawson is present. Oh, we've got, speaking of elected officials, I don't think we've introduced our senator. Senator Claire Wilson is here as well. Okay, any other?
Are there any more questions, community?
Just, I didn't get an opportunity yesterday at the city council meeting, but the neighborhood meeting that happened last week at the community center um, was a bit contentious. I think a lot of there were some folks who were definitely passionate, which is fine, about their issues, but when it turns to respect and heckling and not allowing other people to have a public comment, there were at least two people there who were carrying their weapons and made sure that some of us knew that they were carrying their weapons, which to me is a form of intimidation. I just want to know how in the future we're going to handle situations like that, because I don't see, that was very uncomfortable and I didn't feel safe. I left shortly after I spoke. And it shouldn't be that way. It's a public space. We should be able to respect each other.
I agree. Before I say anything else, Tirza asked me to respond to her, she asked me to respond to her statement. Tirza, I think just in regard to number one, we are very much an inclusive workplace. We fully comply with the American with Disabilities Act, and we fully comply and accommodate any kind of issues that folks have. But for the reasons I stated before, many, if not a super majority of the positions at the city require people to be here. There's an equity issue, in my opinion, about just a very small number of people being able to work remotely while everybody else is required to be here. But more importantly, I feel strongly that people at a public workplace that works for the people and delivers service to the community, we need to be here. And so if somebody has a disability, they could still apply with the city, and we don't discriminate based on disabilities. But that's the position we're taking. And even for those folks that other cities and other locations, they were only talking about 1 or 2 days, or maybe even 3 days tops, where it's not a completely remote workplace. So we're back. And if there's people have a special exception that need to, that they can work with their directors and work with HR. Otherwise, once again, we're a public agency that delivers services for the community. So, okay, now going back to your issue, Cynthia. Yeah, trust me, I was watching very carefully as a former prosecutor for 19 years. I was well aware of that dynamic and that concern. And we were fortunate. We had several law enforcement officers there if the need arose. People being armed at a public meeting, while they certainly have the right to do that, I think that certainly has that effect. And I became aware of that as well during the meeting. And it's why somebody needed to bring that to the meeting, I have no idea. But we were present and ready to address if necessary. And thank God that wasn't necessary. But I think, Cynthia, that it's concerning. And we live in a day and age, and the number of mass shootings in this country has gone up exponentially. And it's a scary, scary, scary time, especially as the father of a young person. And I know you're a parent of Isaiah, and we're all parents and love everybody in our community, and we want people to be safe. And we want to make sure that in spaces that we gather as a community to discuss issues of mutual importance, that we can do so in a safe way. So that's why our law enforcement is very important. And there are people out there with mental health issues, or people out there they just decide they're going to do something, and it's scary and unfortunate. But I think we just need to make sure that we're vigilant and making sure that we're doing everything we can to promote safety. And one of the things I was trying to do at this community meeting is really tamp down the emotionality, and just have people respect each other. There were times in which I thought there were several people in the group that were not letting others speak, and there's nothing more un-American than that. I mean, that's the beauty of our nation, is the ability to speak our minds, especially when that person disagrees with you, and that's what it's really all about. So I thought in the end I I felt some softening of the positions, and I felt some, especially when the meeting kind of broke up and some of the side conversations were happening. I think those conversations are important, and it starts a dialogue. Okay, is there a strategy to bring financial resources allocated under the HEAL Act to Federal Way, and will a racial lens be applied? And will a racial lens be applied to make certain our frontline residents benefit from the resource? HEAL Act. Can somebody help me on this? I candidly, just off the top of my head.
Yes, it is the healthy, healthy communities? The Senate bill that was passed, and major funding was allocated, and it had the racial lens. It's the environmental justice, understanding that communities of color, thank you, front and center, thank you, Cynthia. Communities of color are hardest by environmental justice, and this was legislation that was provided a nice financial lift to communities of color, addressing the effects, what happens, climate change, who's hurt by that. So is there any strategy in bringing it to Federal Way?
I will have to take a look at that. Thank you very much for raising it. As you could tell from my response, it has not been, it has not been front and center. So it's something that Bill, as our policy analyst, will take a look at it. And we have been working very much on environmental policies and climate change policies. We're putting a policy group together for this purpose, and maybe that's something that we can take up with that group. Bill, can you tell people very briefly about our recent efforts in regard to climate change policies and the group we are literally in the process of selecting? Bill?
Hello, everybody. Can you see me?
Yep.
There we go. So basically, thanks to Cindy and Mark Panett, who've been working with the League of Women Voters Initiative on Climate and the King County Initiatives, K4C. Last May, the council affirmed that the city will work on a climate action plan. And we're in the process of pulling together a group internally and externally to bring to council the first meeting of September goals that the public and the council and the mayor will consider. And then the next step will be getting a lot of people involved, including the people in this chat room, the whole community, to find ways to actually achieve that with all sorts of lenses, and including a diversity lens. So we'll be glad to send you out the links to what we've done so far in May. But it's an exciting prospect, and so this will be great to also have this integrated as well too. Steve, do you have any in addition, since you've been working hard on this as well?
Actually, let's go back to the original question, because it goes to the HEALS Act, and Cynthia put a very detailed synopsis of the HEALS Act that came out of the Washington State Legislature. Cynthia or Senator, did you want to read that comment and go over that a bit?
What I did, this is Claire. I just put in the bill report in the chat because, like so many bills, there's so much to it. But that would have information about not only the legislation, but also what's happening. It does not, though, deal with the implementation, which is, I think, what is the question here is how will it be implemented, and how will Federal Way pay attention, if you will, to that implementation to make sure they take part in that. And I think that's our job, to keep our eyes open, and I will be doing that as well. That HEAL Act came out of Senator Saldana, out of our dear and dear friends, White Center Burien areas. So definitely will be of support and impact our community and families in the South County area. But I'm not going to say more because I'll get myself in trouble. So, and I know enough to get myself in trouble, and that's it. So, but I did put all the information in the chat.
That's great. Which reminds me, oh, go ahead. Deontay, I wanted to make sure I brought up a point here. Number one, Bill, let's let's go to that bill report, open it up, and a synopsis of a bill, maybe get our lobbyist to do a synopsis of the final
Sure.
bill as well. We met with our lobbyist actually today about the 373rd, and Senator, we're going to reach out to you about, and thank you very much for meeting with our lobbyist last week about the legislation about the deaths we've had on 373rd and Pacific Highway, and trying to get emergency funding for the roundabout at that location. And also, I want to let everybody know that during one of the monthly meetings I have with the Federal Way Black Collective, I made a personal commitment that we would share the chat from these meetings with the council. And so I want to just let everybody know that we're gonna make sure that we get that. So Steve and Bill, let's make sure we have a way to capture. I know this is being recorded, that we recapture the chat, and make sure that not only do we get the chat and its attachments, but also the full audio to the full city council.
Yeah, we've been doing it as we go. Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay, Cynthia wrote after you. Okay, that's that. Cy wrote, Bill V, happy to volunteer. Oh, thank you, Cy, for that, for your effort to volunteer. Hey, Bill, I think you need to go mute because I'm getting feedback. Define EJ in state law and require its application using racial justice lens. Direct funding, church tribal sovereignty. This is, okay, let me see if I can. Okay, so this is from Cy. Define equal justice in state law and require its application. Use a racial justice lens in agency strategic plans, goals, and metric setting program implementation, enforcement, and reporting affecting the environment. Direct funding with environmental benefits toward investments in and determined by communities highly impacted by pollution or climate impacts. Ensure tribal sovereignty and rights and equal justice. Advance equitable community participation in planning, resource allocation programs, and enforcement. This includes agency, community engagement planning, screening tools like the Washington Environmental Health Disparities, Washington EHD map, reducing barriers to contracting with community-based organizations, and consultation with tribes. Create and fund an equal justice council that will support integrating EJ into state government. Okay, require an EJ assessment of proposed historic environment. Thank you so much, Senator Wilson. Okay, I think we're up to date. Deontay.
You're moving faster than me, Mayor, today. Okay, so where are we at now? Let's see. Any more questions from other community members?
I did just want to maybe mention one thing that's been standing out to me. I did attend the community meeting and then the city council meeting. I don't know, and I heard this comment that, you know, the community does not want ... like the hotels or etc. And one thing that stood out to me in that meeting, and I wish that the council, and I'm sure they do, but I just want to reiterate, if you looked at the demographics of the people standing in the room, I don't know that it necessarily reflected the city of Federal Way. Like, I was looking around the room and I was like, well, I mean, what is the average age of the city of Federal Way? Mayor, isn't it like 47?
You know, I know a lot of different things about it, but I don't know the average age.
I don't know
so
why
I'm not
I
gonna-
look at these things, but the average age I think is like in the 40s. You know, it's households, it's, you know, 2 to 3 kids. Obviously, the diversity in our city is overwhelming. You know, I was looking around the room and I was like, if this reflected our community, we would see multiple interpreters in the room. I'd see multiple intersectionality, right? Multiple people with varying abilities in the room. So there were just a lot of people that were missing. So sometimes when people stand up and say that, I think, yeah, what's in the room and what we have in our community would look very different, right? I would walk in, that's all. So please just kind of keep that in mind. And I appreciate having this space, because going to those community meetings, they're intense for me. Like, I don't feel safe. I'm really fortunate that I have a partner who's 6'3" and 300 plus pounds to really help. But not everybody has that, right? And feels comfortable walking into those meetings. So thanks for being here, and thanks to the Federal Way Black Collective for creating that space. And I think, you know, we just all got to continue to figure out how we can bring those voices. Even youth, you know, we talked about students in McKinney-Vento and some of the conversations, and I was like, well, we should ask youth. And even that conversation around homeless, I just felt it was interesting. Have we actually talked to people who are homeless, like, and asked them instead of having the people in that room tell us what we're going to do with the city? So just something to kind of think about before we do that. How do we create some kind of capture from all of those groups? So at least you have the Federal Black Collective and you can bring the chat back to the city council, but how do we get those voices of people who are currently homeless to the city council? How do we get, our youth? How do we get our, Spanish speaking community members in that meeting, or people with disabilities? So just something I was thinking about and always working on our side as well. Oh, thank you, Cynthia. 35.8. Yeah, that's pretty young.
Wow.
So that's why I
Wow.
was like, if it was really the city in that room, there'd be people my age that I would be sitting in there. And I think we might come with some different options besides no. So
Yeah, Lakeisha, thank you so much for that comment. When I was in the room that night, and it dawned on me several times that I thought several times that night, who's not here and whose voice isn't being heard. And I thought that, there was a mix, and there were folks that weren't as passionate or as vocal, but were there to stand up for what they believe in as well. And our legislators, stood and there was a lot of emotionality, and so there's a couple of ways of looking at it. I mean, I think that ultimately, we want to get as many people there but I think it's always important to ask that question. I think Susan talks about that a lot when Susan and I are talking about these issues, about who's not in the room. And I think that's a conversation that we need to have a lot, always consider. And while people are passionate, we have to think about the other, the other, and maybe people who didn't, because of work, because of schedule, because of kids, because of other things. But that is exactly why we are airing the meeting in its entirety. And it's on YouTube now. It's on channel 21. And it took a few days. There were 3 different cameras, and I was explaining last night why it took a few days. It took until yesterday to be able to get that essentially TV ready. But it's playing now. Yeah. Okay. So
But
we had, go ahead.
Mayor, but what if we reached out to some of the shelters in our community and actually asked them to do, just check in with their community members and ask them, say, hey, not that you speak for everybody, but how do you feel about having services mandated versus offering it? How do you feel about, right? Like, do you need more housing? Are the homeless community or the people around you that are houseless right now, like, are they from all over the country, or do you find that they tend to be local? So it could be as much as calling some of these organizations and just asking them a lot. I mean, we're in such a data-driven society. I bet you they might have some of those answers.
Well, we're going to have another opportunity at the meeting last night. There was a request to have a follow-up study session about extended stay. And at our next council meeting, immediately before that council meeting at 5 p.m., we're going to have a study session on the extended stay, what essentially health through housing program. I contacted the executive's chief of staff today, Shannon Braddock, who's doing a phenomenal job for Dow. And they actually made Leo Flor available. I think I said this at the meeting. They made him available as of that day. And originally it wasn't on the agenda because it's not our item. It's not our initiative. It's King County's initiative. But I thought because of the interest in this and because of the comments we were receiving, I reached out to the executive's office last week and said, I think we need somebody. I think we need Leo here. And Leo Flor, the director of King County's community and housing department of the entire King County, drove down and he was there till 10 o'clock at night for the 6:30 meeting. So, and he spoke to the group. He's going to come. He's going to. When I spoke with Shannon today, Shannon Braddock, Dow's chief, she made clear that Leo can come back down, and we're going to have that study session on to talk about this issue and its parameters. I think that there's some misinformation, or at least there are strong misgivings and concerns about this program, because I think there's a feeling or some dialogue about it being, sort of a free-for-all on an unstructured environment without treatment. And that's just not the case. And there are a lot of things that are being offered, and there's a lot of information that's available. So we want to make sure that Leo and his team can come down here and talk about what this actually is. 24-hour assistance, or 24-hour staffing at the location, and certain parameters, and people have to agree to a code of conduct, and it's not going to be the stereotype or the concerns that are being raised in regard to rampant drug use and that kind of thing. These are going to be people's individual apartments. But there was also what was raised last night, and I think that was really missing in the public meeting on last Thursday, was according to House Bill 2020, permanent supportive housing cannot be restricted by a city in which rooms are rented, and where there's a residential area. So we couldn't ban this location if we wanted to for what's referred to as permanent supportive housing. And I think that's a big deal here. So just to reiterate, we've got on August 10th, 5 p.m., Leo Floor and hopefully his team are going to be there in a study session to go over that issue, and hopefully discuss what the real parameters and metrics are.
And just to add to that, if we can reach out and ask those people and have their feedback in written, because like Cynthia just shared, we know people show up with guns. The environment is pretty hostile. So I'm not sure that I would feel safe or even feel good about inviting some of my community members into that space, because that's traumatic. Like, I've met Leo before and he was literally choked up at that meeting. This is a veteran, right? Who was pretty disturbed. So I would just love if we kind of reached out and got some of that community feedback. And then last thing that I really am curious, and I just can't find the answer, and I need you to know I'm asking for youth and teens on my side as well, but what is the pathway to treatment in Federal Way? Like, if you run into somebody who would like to get chemical dependency services, where do they go? Is there a ready list? Are we bolstering that? I just don't feel like and I'm a social worker and I don't feel like I have a strong answer.
Whenever we go into the encampments, we actually have a list of treatment facilities. We've got all kinds of lists that we provide, not all kinds, but we've got several lists we provide to people that are experiencing homelessness. Our day center has referrals. We're right next door to Valley Cities. Valley Cities is one of the major providers for treatment. And so there are, and that's something that Sarah Bridgeford, our human services manager, can certainly, I don't think she's on the call tonight. Is she? Oh, Sarah, are you on the call?
I am, yes.
Ah, great. Thank you. Sarah.
And I would actually say that with any behavioral health services, treatment and mental health, we do need more. And I would encourage more locally. It is something that, we should be talking about, looking at data coming out of COVID in particular, but even pre-COVID, what we saw is that we did not have the local infrastructure to address the needs that we have in our community. We do have referral lists, and there are requirements around assessments and responses. But we know that for inpatient and any kind of treatment, we just don't have the capacity that we need. And I think that we can continue to look for additional services and should be encouraging that in any way possible.
Thank you, Sarah. I see comments. I don't think it's necessary for me to read the comments in the chat. I think everybody's got the chat available to them. I'm looking at questions. Steve put in there the schedule for when the Neighborhood Connection will air, and it's also on YouTube. You can look at it any time. Terza asked, are we looking into rental rates because people living on $15 an hour still cannot afford housing? I think that's what the Housing Action Plan is all about, to make sure that we've got a balance of housing options in our city and make sure that we stay affordable. So yes, essentially that is being looked at to make sure that we've got affordable housing in our community. Sai writes, let's see here. I'm looking for questions here, but I would encourage everybody to go to the chat and see the statements being made. Okay, Lakeisha just asked about the pathway to treatment. That's the last question I see. Okay, Deontay.
I'm sorry. What did you say? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. What I said was there were statements on here that I would encourage everybody to read. I don't think it's necessary for me to read all the statements, but the last question that on here is Lakeisha's questions about pathway to treatments in Federal Way, which we just answered.
Okay, awesome.
I was wondering, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Senator Wilson, is the legislature Taylor had mentioned like a down payment around mental health or chemical dependency, but I don't remember that context. Is there anything happening to help? Because I appreciate Sarah sharing. We don't have enough.
59 billion, yeah, $59 billion in investments went into both childcare and public health services. But remember, things just got signed in July 1. So implementation and how that's going to roll out is going to take a little bit of time because the investments were so huge and really are so significant. So keep your eyes open for that. And, you know, my question I had in here is how might we also increase the actual recovery services and supports that go directly to those unsheltered residents we're talking about as they begin their reentry at the very facilities we're talking about. So at the hotels, as opposed to thinking about, you know, we do need treatment beds, but we also have ways we can start providing services and supports why individuals are being housed and fed, if you will, and warm. And, you know, and then the only other question, and it's kind of rhetorical, and then I won't say any more, is I found it fascinating at the community meeting that not a soul talked about the Fusion homeless shelter that we provided over $1 million from the state and over $1 million from the county. And
Great.
It's housing and it's a $3 million purchase, right? And it's currently, yeah, I mean, it's currently housing 60 families with children. And why is it that that was not a mention? And I'm just going to be really honest to say, is it because a white person is running the organization? And I'm just really kind of ticked me off. I mean, I'm pissed off about it. And the fact is, how is that any different than anything else we're trying to do? And the fact is that these adults were children. These were children who did not get their needs met, who had traumatic experiences, who have been impacted by this ongoing discrimination and, you know, just the entire world. And so why suddenly someone turns 18 and we suddenly decide they're no longer worthy? It's the fact we didn't give individuals what they needed when they were young. And until we begin to do that, we're going to continue to be in this situation. So it has to be an and both. But I just, you know, just makes me always wonder. And all individuals are worthy of being homed and housed.
No, Senator, thank you so much. Actually, that was, thank you. I thank you for your, I mean, that was really, that's clear. I thank you so much. That was really, but you know what? It was 3 million by the state, 3 million by county, thanks to Pete. And then we get the 3, you know, in the state legislature for a total of 6. But Senator, you are spot on that this is really, I think what really made me sad listening to a lot of that is that these are human beings that are literally, we're trying to get them out of the woods. We're trying to get them out of the encampments. We're trying to save their lives. And you know, people are not going to get into treatment when they're sitting in an encampment. That's not going to happen. And so I really, where are they supposed to go? That's where you know, and this, and I got to tell you, the other thing I was going to say when you were talking, Senator, is that think about the hotel where the Fusion location is now. It was horrible. And it was exactly what they did not want to be the extended stay. So here you're going to have round the clock supervision. You're going to have services provided. You're going to have people with a place to take a shower, get cleaned up, connect with their families, and get out of the woods. And it's probably going to be a cleaner area than it is right now. So I completely agree. And it made me a little, when I was talking to Steve about it afterwards, Steve and Bill, well, we were concerned. It made us sad. It made us really, from a human standpoint, about the human tragedy and the toll that it takes. And a lot of these, you know, we've gotten some statistics about overdoses, and a lot of these overdoses are happening in these encampments and people that just reach the end of hope. And this is really all about the whole core about what we do as a community is about moving forward. It's about hope and love. And so that's really what I actually think. I think Dow and the executive and King County government is onto something on health through housing. They do it also at William J. Wood. They do it at Fusion. The model is to get people into hotels and out of encampments. That's the model. They're doing it all over the country. Austin, I was watching the Austin, Texas. The mayor there was talking about primarily a focus on veterans and getting in kind of the William J. Wood model. But that's what's happening there as well. So anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mayor Farrell, and thank you very much, Senator Wilson. I was going to ask Sarah, Sarah and Ms. Rogers, did you both have questions? And then after that, we'll close.
I'm happy to defer to Trinice first, and then if I may add a little bit about the Health Through Housing service if there's time, but not essential.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I was in a meeting with King County, so I missed the majority of the meeting. But I just really want to encourage Senator Wilson. I encourage you to keep the same energy when you're in the rooms with your white stakeholders. You're passionate now, but you need to keep the same energy, and you need to carry these messages to the decision makers. We're having a beautiful conversation right now, you know, but I encourage you to just share your passion and really just follow through and hold your stakeholders accountable to just really move the work forward. And I just
will say, Trinice, I promise you, I'm the same in every room I'm in, and I will continue.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. I've seen you in spaces. And so also, I just want to encourage everyone, because I know it's hard to see our city in this condition. And I really share a lot of the sentiments. And I'm just encouraging everyone to look forward to opportunities in the near future to engage in a groundbreaking process. I serve as co-chair on this upcoming effort with the King County Community Investment Committee. And this is like essentially like an opportunity to really invest $10 million. Well, we're sharing between 5 cities $10 million to invest into our urban and unincorporated areas. And so for us, for Federal Way, we're really focused on East Federal Way, so it will be the unincorporated areas. And so this is essentially like a way to engage on a local level, you know, with local voices and tangible results. So we're in the very beginning stages. And so I encourage everyone to look forward to opportunities to engage. We'll be doing a lot of community engagement projects. Today, we just did a walkthrough of East King County or East Federal Way. Just the passion and the concerns I'm hearing, you know, that I've heard, you know, the little time I've been on, I just want you all to know that there are upcoming opportunities to really have a hands-on opportunity to really make change and have your voices heard on multiple levels. So again, I appreciate it. If you all just really, as we're sharing our passion and concerns, you know, a lot of people, you know, are connected to different organizations and things like that, but it's really important that we come together as a group in Federal Way, you know, aside from grants, aside from funding, just come with a heart of servitude, a mindset of servitude, and just know that we're doing hard work, we're doing intentional work, and it's not, no, there's no dollars attached to it, but if you're really passionate about what you're sharing and how you feel, this is the opportunity to actually give back on a level of as a servant, opposed to any outside, you know, just as we enter this space and this work, I just encourage everyone to come together like in an effort of just servitude and service. Yes, it's volunteer, but it's really important that we have as many voices as possible in this effort. And I know we have so many compassionate, loving, you know, people in the community, and this is the opportunity for everyone in this circle and everyone in the community just to engage. So, you know,
I know that's
when I drive down the roads, I sometimes I cry. I do see things, and sometimes, yes, I cry. Sometimes my children see things, yes, they cry. You know, the last 3 Christmases, we've been handing out food. You know, it's a lot, you know, and the mayor can't do it, you know, he can't do everything on his own. He can't, and really transparent of him to have these meetings. And yes, you know, a lot of times we're focused on other areas, but right now, the little part I heard, which was like the last 5 minutes, I hear a lot of compassion. I hear a lot of focus on, you know, the recent topics, you know, drug use and housing. So this particular effort I'm sharing now is an opportunity to engage in the community.
Absolutely, Ms. Rogers, thank you so much. And you please let us know. I don't personally live in Federal Way, but just in the spaces of community, how we can support you in the efforts that you're doing. And I'm very, and as always, we're grateful for our mayor for opening up the space to answer some of the questions. I believe Ms. Honda, you had a question, and after that, we were going to Ms. Honda and or Sarah.
And Deontay,
yeah,
Lynn had a question too. Go ahead, Susan. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah. Sorry.
I did that by mistake. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Ms. Sarah.
Thank you. I hope it's okay that I take this opportunity. Mayor Farrell did touch on the services. I would say that one of the unique components of Health Through Housing is the depth of services that are actually funded as long as a property is in service. So as long as the property is being used for permanent supportive housing, it comes with outreach services, case management, housing navigation. More importantly, it comes with behavioral health services, both treatment, mental health. There are some physical services as well. I don't know the extent of those, but this is one of the first funding sources, and King County has structured it in a way that it comes with a lot of those services built into the program. Typically, we see permanent supportive housing and shelters making referrals to those same services. They're not funded, they might be in partnership. The agencies providing those are either seeking other grant funding in order to provide the behavioral health services. They're relying on reimbursement through Medicaid, insurance. House Bill 1590 and King County's implementation of that funding is resulting in a permanent supportive housing project that will have many of these services built in. I think that's really important to note, that we do see those opportunities for residents who enter into this housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sarah. And I'm sorry, Mayor, you said someone else had a question? I couldn't remember who you said.
In the chat, Lynn had a question about how will the community health and PD money from Congress be applied for within our community? So that actually, you know, when I first read that, because I saw PD, I thought I was going to kick it over to the police. But so we're going to go through a process, Lynn, in regard to that, in regard to I assume you're talking about ARPA money. We're gonna have a study session with the council, talk about metrics and talk about how we can get this money out. There are all kinds of things that we can do. I was talking to Sarah today in my office about ways in which we can deploy money to help communities in need, and she's going to be making some requests in regard to you know, community health, community services, those kinds of things. But I think that we need to come up with some strong metrics to assist our community, to make sure this money gets out, because we're going to get $19 million of federal money, and we want to make sure that we push this out and really help our community. It's going to be a game changer for our community, not just to, you know, get ourselves back in order with regard to lost revenues. There is a piece, though, I need to explain, that what we need to be able to do, we haven't got guidance yet from Treasury, the U.S. Treasury Department, about what qualifies for ARPA funding in really minute detail, but we can actually get our money back into the general fund up to maybe even for this past year, $12 million. And then from there, once it's general fund money, then we can put it out. So we're in the process of figuring that out. But Lynn, that's the $19 million question. That is the question. And let's continue to dialogue about that and make sure that the people who need this money get it. Wow, no more, no reaction to that. Teresa was going to say something about her experience in Anchorage.
Hi, thank you. I was saying that when I lived in Alaska, a lot of people think it's like a foreign country, but Alaska is very progressive. We were one of the first people, I guess, in the country way back was many, many years ago that did that. We bought a hotel in the midtown part of Anchorage, Alaska, and that's when they first were using drug and alcohol places. And we turned it into, and everybody had the same kind of concerns and conversations they're having now. They're going to be just drunk walking down the street. They're going to be sitting on the street getting high. You know, people are going to run over them, just all those same issues and concern. But Alaska, you know, they held out for wanting to be a help to people. And they put it up. And once it started operating, people's lives change when they have a place to call their own, literally. Yes, they sat in their house and they may have gotten high, they may have gotten drunk, but a lot of you who have jobs do the same thing. And they were able to, you know, get their lives turned around. They can get back on track because they had a house, they had a home, and that was real important to them. And it's one of the, I would encourage you guys to look into that program. It's still there right now today, operating very, very well as to how it operated and how it began to turn people's lives around. The whole thing is basically, once people have a safe place to be, their lives can change. Everybody doesn't want to be in a program. Everybody doesn't want to be in a group home. Everybody doesn't want to have to live amongst a whole bunch of people. People want their own safe place. That's why I'm hoping that a lot of that money and stuff will be looked towards that. And a lot of them do have health issues or are disabled. So they cannot, that was my concern about when I was talking, made the statement about how many jobs people got that are disabled because of COVID. They were able to turn their lives around for that small year. They were able to make great changes because most people don't want somebody who's disabled that can only work part-time, that cannot come in to an office building maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So their lives are stuck, you know, living on Social Security disability, but this made a way for a lot of those people to be able to make major changes in their life. So I'm again stating that that's an issue for our diversity person to take a look at that. How are we going to include those people into our community? And as I always say, I believe Federal Way is one of the places that can change things for the nation. I believe that. We have a great place to live in, and I think we can change that. But one more thing I want to say today on the news, if anybody was watching, we're talking about the de-escalating the police department, and I'm going to be quick. We saw, if you look at the news, there was a man that was having a mental breakdown. And since this laws went in effect, the police department, all they could do is stand around. Yes, the man was upset. He was throwing things. He was, you know, half dressed and things like that. But the police had to stand by and let this man have his mental breakdown, you know, vent, do whatever. But the man lived, the man went home, and so did the police. So it is going to take some time, but it is well worth it, making sure. And I'm really, don't want to say too much, but I have a real issue with this fear mongering that they're saying that so many things are going to change. We have to change something. It's not been working, and it's not just a Federal Way issue, it's a nation issue. So we have to let something work. And this worked very, very well. Very public, very well. The man went home, the police went home, everybody lived another day. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
But some don't, and until we actually start working together and providing those resources, we will be forever in that space of being stagnant. Go ahead, Mayor.
You know, I think there is a ray of hope, you guys. I know that I want you to go back, and if you go back and look at the video, or if you just remember your own experiences, there were several times where people who were very stridently opposed to this started their comments with the words, you know, we care about those people. We want them. You know, we recognize they're human beings. I think that there's room. I think that some of the folks in there, several of the folks actually, if you listen carefully to their statements, had personal family experiences with addiction, and they were kind of coming from a place of pain, and they were coming from a place of, you know, from that past experience. But what I heard, and I think it is important to note this, is that I did notice this. I did hear a softness of position and the recognition of the humanity of the loss and trying to figure out, you know, how to approach it. And so I think that there's a way that we can come together. You know, I think if we can make sure that what's happening at this location, you know, with the extended stay has a good program and good offerings, and it's not going to be a bad location, I think you're going to see the community support it. That's just like what Claire was talking, what said the senator was talking about we're not hearing about Fusion because they're running a great job and you know, and families and all that. So I just want to say that. There's hope. We can come together.
Absolutely. In the meantime, I would like to thank the Federal Way Black Collective, Mayor Farrell, and a host of all of our city council members, senators, and above all else, you community. I can't wait for the next one. Hopefully I can come back to the next one. In the meantime, I want you guys just to all enjoy the rest of your summer and be safe. That's all I have. It's been a real long day, y'all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for caring about our community. Thank you.
Yes.
And the great ideas
Bye.
and comments. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Deontay,
Don't forget to
so good
vote.
See you.
Bye, everybody. Be safe.
Bye.
All right, take care. Great meeting. Senator
Thank
Wilson,
you.
thank you. Dante,
Thank
good job.
you always, Cynthia. Thank you, thank you, thank you.